He was standing there with a huge smile on his face, with his computer open, looking at me, and I know the look on a scientist's face when that happens.
Hello, and welcome to the Pacific Channel, where you learn how to be, do, and have whatever you want through the power of the law of attraction, meditation, and more. I'm your host, Steve Doherty. This audio clip is of Dr. Joe Dispenza and Dr. Emil discussing their desire to verify the Dr. Joe Meditation Workshop data with independent teams to add validity to it. He'll talk about how the HeartMath Institute participated in the data analysis of the results of Dr. Joe's workshops. If you're not familiar with HeartMath Institute, they are well known in the healing community. According to their website, for more than 25 years, HeartMath Institute has been researching the heart-brain connection and learning how the heart influences our perceptions, emotions, intuition, and health. HeartMath helps you tap into the power and intelligence of your heart's intuition, which awakens you to the best version of yourself. So, HeartMath is a proponent of the ideas that Dr. Joe Dispenza promotes, which is the idea that when you get your heart and your brain into coherence together, healing and much more can occur. What Dr. Emil talks about is how when individuals gather together to help one or more others to heal, something profound and powerful happens. Not only does the person needing the healing become healed, but the healer heals too. Most healers already know this. They know that many times when they help someone to align with source energy to heal, they heal too. And the universe has a way of lining up the healer with the healee. Next, Dr. Joe will talk about how every time they do one of their coherence healings, that they see a dramatic change outside of normal. He says that it suggests that random events can be influenced by intention. He will also talk about the energy that the coherence healing creates is electromagnetic, and how that energy can somehow change the behavior of a programmed machine. Then he'll talk about how a quantum physicist who was also performing tests showed a dramatic departure from way outside of normal. In addition, Dr. Joe will talk about how during the meditation he gives, right when he asks everyone to open their eyes, their testing shows a burst of coherence. The main point to all of this is that creating that feeling within your heart and mind of love, gratitude, appreciation, and focus intent can be directed. That energy can be directed towards another human being or whatever is desired and wanted. This is how and why it works when groups of meditators get together to heal a city of crime. Let's listen to this conversation with Dr. Emil and Dr. Joe now.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're encouraging and sort of trying to get at these events are independent teams that come in and validate the same data sets or the same things, similar kinds of measurements. And so the HeartMath group had their REG devices in, and then we're working with a guy, Scott Davies, who's doing his own set as well. And so Scott does some different manipulations of the REGs that he has, and then HeartMath does their own. And I presented some data on my, I think it was a Friday talk that I gave, where we actually collected data during a coherence healing. And so typically what you see is there's this parabola shape, and if there's randomness in this, the little signal just sort of buzzes along inside that parabola. When you create order and coherence and other things, what we see is that in the line that shifts outside of that parabola, and you're creating a non-random an actual environment of a functional change. And what we were able to see, and what we've been able to see at event after event after event that these have been done, is you shift away from that random noise into this non-random behavior during these coherence healings. There's something unique about this. I mean, you see it sometimes during the early events, but it really happens during these coherence healings. And when we were looking at the large data set of Garmin's from Quantum 1.0, there are essentially 17 meditations that we looked at throughout the week. And the time at which we saw changes in HRVs were all during the coherence healing. You saw some trends in the early meditations when people are starting to develop the practice of meditation and the group dynamic and those sorts of things. But it didn't pop until we get to the coherence healing. So there's something about the energy that's created during this phase when you're focusing on something outside of you, and really an individual that you're pouring your gratitude, love, energy, emotion, everything into healing this person that you know very little about, right? You just know that they need you. And something happens to a human when they're tasked with doing that, right? Without any benefit to themselves. And we can talk about benefits to themselves. They're seeing benefits. They're just not realizing, right? We have lots of data to suggest that the healer is being healed and the healee is being healed as well at the same time. But something happens in that room during those coherence healings. And we've got data from a machine that suggests this now as well.
Sure. And just to add to that, the idea of a parabola, just for those of you who went blank on that, if you go x equals y squared, you throw in 1, you throw in 2, you throw in 3, and you go into that equation, you get this kind of U shape that's very, very symmetrical, right? Right down the line. You can make it wider depending on, but it's pretty much mathematical, and it's very symmetrical. Draw the line right down the middle, and that represents normal. So when we look at these random events, it's a sophisticated coin toss, and the more you toss a coin, the more it's 50-50. So when no one's in the room at the beginning of the event, and or in the middle of the night, you kind of see it just 50-50, head, tail, head, tail, something like that. But it turns out to be 50-50 and goes right along that line that's in between that curve. When we do the coherence healing, is an opportunity for people to demonstrate giving and open their hearts and get beyond this realm of space and time. And when it's no longer about their personal needs, their desires, or their self, it's about giving to someone else, and giving to someone else other than self. Every time we've studied this, we see this dramatic change that moves outside of normal, and it suggests that random events are really being influenced to become less random and more intentional. In other words, on some level, electromagnetism is affecting the behavior of a programmed machine. Now, I don't think most people really get that on some level, but somehow the field is changing the behavior of something that's mechanistic, something that's a machine. When I talked to the quantum physicist after the first coherence healing, I went backstage after we finished, and he was standing there with a huge smile on his face, with his computer open, looking at me, and I know the look on a scientist's face when that happens. He was so thrilled to see this dramatic departure from way outside, way outside, and it went straight up to the point right when I said, now you can open your eyes. There was a burst of flux of even higher. We came back as a collective. And I keep saying it's collective networks of observers that determine reality, right? And it's not the number of people or the amount of energy, it's the most coherent, right? So you have this collective people that are 1,853 people in the same place at the same time, doing the exact same thing with brain and heart coherence, and this concept of resonance, the appearance of things separate in space and time. If they start vibrating, they will vibrate collectively as one, and they'll start resonating together. And so these macro-conscious individual entities begin to form macro-conscious entities, and when that occurs, there's an exchange of information because the same frequency is exchanging the same information, and we create this collective community, right? So we see this dramatic departure from what normal is, and we see it over and over again. Now, I was talking to a staff member today. She was so brilliant, and she came to the event, and we were talking about, wow, what is it, that we do when we give to another person? We're giving to something other than self, and we had this conversation, and she was sharing with someone in the audience, and this guy said, well, God, when you're creating, you're actually doing the same thing. You're giving to someone else, but it's your future self. It's just not you, right? And if we could kind of wrap our mind around that idea and use it in the same way, we can enhance our own personal growth and our own personal experience. So we did 2 different types of random event generator measurements, just like we did 3 different types of heart measurements and with 3 different collections, just to see if there were similarities. And so at the end of the event, I went back to the 2 guys that were running the random event generators, and I said, so what is it? What is it? And the physicist said, look, our machine has stacked devices. I don't know if he said 7 or 8 on top of each other, but in order for them to actually calculate the fluctuations that are taking place, all of them have to be in resonance. All of them have to be in coherence, and that's what actually causes the change in the effects. So there's so much to say about that, because when we were doodling around at one event, I think it was maybe Marco Island Advanced Follow-Up, we insulated one of these devices with a Faraday cage with something that blocks electromagnetism, copper and nickel. They're heavy metals that could absorb electromagnetism, and they use it in all kinds of experiments. And when we put the Faraday cage around one device, while there were 2 that didn't have maybe was it 2? I think there was 2 other ones that didn't have the shield. They broke outside of the normal, but the one that had the copper shield around it, it just looked like it was normal, which means on some level there's a fluctuation in the room of electromagnetic energy. And so we've been saying all along, the brain sends out the electrical charge, the heart creates the magnetic charge. How you think and how you feel really is an electromagnetic signature that could actually influence every atom of our lives. And so this is important, because if we can do that and correlate it with brain data and the HRV data, we have a story that nobody else could be telling. And then looking at the effects subjectively in people who have stepped out of their wheelchairs, we saw people lift their arms after strokes or walk with their legs, have spinal cord injuries, and correlating with kind of the effects that are being produced in people's own subjective experience. Man, there's a lot of possibility in changing the way we talk about health and the way we talk about healing and the way we talk about how this whole thing occurs when people gather together with an intent other than anything about themselves.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why healing works the best when you do it for another person is that you offer no resistance to the thought and feeling to heal. In other words, when you try to heal yourself of anything, usually the whole reason why you have the ailment or the disease to begin with is because you've been unknowingly thinking negative thoughts of worry or anger or resentment, sadness or depression. But when you get someone else involved in your own healing, they don't have those resistant thoughts. If they are a good healer, they will look at you as already healed, and they will hold that space of healing for you. They will see you as whole, complete, and healed already before they even start. And that seems to be the reason why group healing is so effective. When people gather together to heal another person, when they don't even know who that person is, that alone is an action of unconditional love. Unconditional love is a powerful tool that any of us can use to heal one another or ourselves. But like I said, it's harder to do it for yourself. But here's the caveat. If you let others heal you and you do nothing to change the way you think and feel, then whatever was ailing you might come back. Group healing is sort of like putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound if you don't do it correctly. You really should take the time to improve your emotions so that physical, mental, and emotional ailments don't come back. But on the other hand, most people who receive a group healing like this become more loving, more kind, more thoughtful, and feel better about themselves than ever before because of the healing they received. And if they can keep their emotions elevated, then the disease won't come back. So my point is, group healings are awesome. Just realize that it's best if you can change your thinking and feeling after that so the disease or physical, mental, or emotional ailment doesn't come back. The truth is, when you heal another, you are healing yourself because we are all connected. We are all like those entangled particles that quantum physicists talk about. And no matter how far apart we may be, we can still have an effect on another person. This is why it's so incredibly important to forgive everyone from your past, to look for the best in others, and to praise them whether they deserve it or not. I know that that's a really difficult thing to do for others, and I struggle to do that too. But we must remember that others may not deserve our good thoughts about them, but we do. We deserve to feel good towards others no matter what and who they are, because we deserve to live a great life and to be, do, and have whatever we want. The main point of this video is that Dr. Joe is on to something very big and huge. We as humans have powers beyond our own imagination. Now, if we could just believe it. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. And if you know of anyone who could use information about how science is now verifying the validity of energy healing work through meditation and Dr. Joe's work, please share this with them. And please comment below about what you think about group healing. Have you ever participated in it? If yes, what were the results? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.